Washington hit the reset button in 2024. So how about 2025? What's that going to look like? What will be their projected record? We're going to break down that and the schedule as we get a very early look at the Huskies for 2025. Will Washington's 2025 schedule give them a chance to have a rebound in 2025? We shall see. Let's take a look at that schedule. Here is the full schedule, and we're going to break it down first with the non-conference. They got Colorado State, UC Davis, and on the road at Washington State. So no Power 4 opponent for them this year. Washington State, of course, rivalry game. I don't know if you want to call them a power opponent or not. I don't think you can at this point, but still that should be an exciting game, a rivalry game there, and glad to see them continuing that rivalry. Let's take a look at who they play at home, who they play away in the Big Ten. They'll get Ohio State, Rutgers, Illinois, Purdue, and Oregon at home. On the road, they'll play Washington State in the non-conference. In the Big Ten, they'll play Maryland, Michigan, Wisconsin, and UCLA. So 5 home games, 4 road games. You add in the Washington State road game in the non-conference, they'll have a total 7 home games, 5 road games, which is really what most teams in the Big Ten have. We've seen a few times where it might be 8-4 or 6-6, but yeah, you look at the home games: Ohio State, Rutgers, Illinois, Purdue, and Oregon. That's a pretty tough home schedule, especially when you look at Ohio State, Illinois, and Oregon. Those games will be very, very tough, but at least they do get them at home. Road schedule, not too bad. Maryland, Michigan, Wisconsin, UCLA, Michigan will probably be the toughest game of those 4. But the other 3 games are winnable. Those are winnable road games. So how about the changes from last year in the Big Ten? So they got rid of Indiana, Iowa, Northwestern, Penn State, and USC, but they add Illinois, Maryland, Ohio State, Purdue, and Wisconsin. So yeah, Penn State dropping off. That's good news. Ohio State, though, not good news. They also lost, Indiana, Iowa, USC. Those are pretty good teams, but they added Illinois. Yeah, I would say it's a pretty good trade. I think it's a little bit easier this year. Again, when you look at the total number of teams there with Indiana, Iowa, USC, 3 pretty solid teams, and they've got some easier games of Maryland, Purdue, and Wisconsin. So let's go game by game and take a look at this schedule. They will start off with Colorado State week 1, and then it's UC Davis week 2. They actually have their first bye week very early. When you have 2 bye weeks, I guess it's not as big of a deal. If they only had 1 bye week, then obviously this would be a terrible time to have it. But September 13th, week 3, that's when they'll get their first bye week. Then it's on the road at Washington State. So they do get a bye week before that rivalry game, and then you get into Big Ten play. Ohio State will be on September 27th at home, and then it's on the road at Maryland, back home for Rutgers, on the road at Michigan, back home for Illinois. So that's really the whole schedule. I mean, if you look at it, starting with Washington State, it's road, home, away, home, away, home, away. I mean, it's the whole schedule, back and forth. They have no back-to-back road games. They're only back-to-back home games for those first 2 games of the season. But yeah, let's just look at that part of the schedule there from Washington State to Illinois. That's pretty tough. You got the rivalry game, then you got Ohio State in there, also Michigan and Illinois. That is going to be a very, very tough stretch, and 6 games without really any breaks. I'd say Maryland's probably the worst team in that group, but they've got to play them on the road, or maybe Washington State's the worst team, but still, no gimme games there, no easy games. Rutgers is probably their easiest home game, but still, that's going to be a pretty tough stretch. We'll see what they can do coming out of that. Then they get that second bye week. They finish out with a final 4 games that are not too tough. You got Wisconsin on the road November 8th. Then it's Purdue at home, UCLA on the road on the 22nd, and they close things out with Oregon on November 29th. So yeah, Oregon obviously going to be a really tough game, but Wisconsin, Purdue, UCLA, those are 3 winnable games there. So I don't think that's too tough of a stretch. And all in all, I mean, there aren't any, what's the toughest back-to-back on the schedule? Probably Michigan and Illinois. There isn't a really brutal stretch, but they do have some good teams on the schedule. And again, it's very interesting that they go home and away back and forth all season long. So how does this compare to other teams in the Big Ten? Well, we look at the winning percentage from their 2025 opponents from 2024, and you see Washington 38-43, 47% win percentage for their opponents last season. That's about in the middle. It is a little bit of an easier schedule, so that's crazy to have Ohio State and also Oregon on the schedule and still have one of the easier conference schedules. But That's just the way it works out. They've got some easier games mixed in there. So we'll see if that schedule is going to give them a chance to bounce back, and who knows, maybe even get into the running there in the Big Ten in 2025. A 6-6 year for Washington in 2024. What will the projection look like for 2025? Let's first look at our projections from the last 4 seasons. In 2021, we projected this team to go 8-4. They went 4-8, and this is with our projection formula, our projected record formula. This is not from our predictions, just from the formula that you're about to see in this video. In 2022, projected to go 7-5. They went 10-2, so kind of flip-flopped. Did a lot worse in 21. A lot better in 22. In 23, projected to go 10-2. They beat that, went 12-0. Although I would say that 10-2 projection was pretty fair. They had some close wins in there. Very easily could have gone 10-2. And then last year, projected to go 7-5. They went 6-6. So we're very close to the projection. We did miss it by 1 game. But let's see what the projection looks like for this year. Again, here's the schedule. This is the scale that we use. This is all based off of our tier system, our tier rankings. Washington is a tier 4 team. They are in tier number 4, which means if they play another tier 4 team, that's a 50-50 game. It'll be in the white. If they play a tier 5 team, it'll be a 61 to 70% game. It'll be in the purple. But if that game's on the road, it does then move to a 50-50 game. And that's kind of the way this works. And again, this is just a formula. It's a mathematical formula. There is no human element to this. No predictions here. Our predictions won't come until after spring football, after Memorial Day. That's usually when we start them. One way to look at this, again, this is not the way that we figure this formula, but you can look at it this way because it kind of works out. If the game's in the white, it's basically a game where I think the point spread is usually going to be around 3, 4, 5 points. In the purple, more like a 7, 8, 9 point spread. Then in the blue, double digits, over 80%, maybe 20 or more. Those are pretty much guaranteed wins. And that's where we'll start. Colorado State and UC Davis, these are pretty much guaranteed wins for Washington. Again, this is all based on them being a tier 4 team. They could really improve. And this is a team I think that has that capability. They might be a tier 3 team this year, and that would change these numbers just a little bit. But those are their easy wins. And then you also look at Purdue being not quite in the green, but still a very, you feel confident that the Washington's going to take care of business in this game at home against they were the worst team in the Big Ten last year. Let's be honest here. Purdue was not very good, and I don't really expect them to be much better this year. Maybe a little better. We'll see. So those are your wins that you gotta have. If you're a Washington fan, you gotta have these 3 wins. Then you look at these games in the purple. Washington State on the road, Rutgers at home. You really need to win these games. You feel like you're the better team. Again, they should be a touchdown favorite, I think, in both of these. Not guaranteed wins, and they'll be tough, hard-fought games, I'm sure, but those are games you really want to win as well. So that gives you 5 wins where I think Washington is definitely going to be favored. The rest of the schedule, they're going to be underdogs, or those games are going to pretty much be toss-ups. So let's go to Illinois now. I think they're going to be an underdog in this game by about a touchdown or so. Illinois is they're 2 tiers above Washington. Game is at Washington. That's why it's in the yellow instead of the orange, because Michigan's in the same tier as Illinois, but they're in the orange because that game is on the road. So that's the difference there. Ohio State and Oregon are in tier 1. Michigan and Illinois are in tier 2. So yeah, Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, those will be very, very tough games for Washington. If I was just doing the numbers here, I would give them a better chance to beat Michigan than Ohio State and Oregon, even though that game is on the road. But again, this is all based off of our formula. And I do think those numbers are pretty fair. I do think Washington will be a double-digit underdog in all 3 of those games. If I had to guess, I'd say 11 points against Michigan and maybe 14 to 16 points against Oregon and Ohio State. That's just a guess. I don't know. But those are going to be tough. Those 3 games for sure. Illinois, that's the game you really want to – if you were to get a big win this year, Washington, their opportunity, I think, is at home against Illinois. That's their chance for a big, big win. And if they lose these other 3 games in the orange and they beat Illinois and win the rest, they could get to 9-3 very realistically. But with Maryland, Wisconsin, and UCLA, these are all toss-up games. These are 50-50 games. Problem for Washington is all 3 of them are on the road. That means it's going to be tough to win all 3. That's going to be tough. We'll see how it plays out. But you'd like to have 1 or 2 of those at home. So what's the projection for Washington? Well, if we average all this out, again, if you split your 50-50 games, you've got 1.5 losses there. And then if they were to lose, let's say they just lose the games in the orange and the yellow, then you're at, you add 4 more losses, so then you're at 5.5 losses, and that's kind of how it plays out. Again, you have to look at the odds on all these games. Washington State and Rutgers, there's a chance they lose those games, but there's a chance they win against Illinois. And when you average it all out, you get 7-5. So this is actually the same projection for Washington as last season. They were 1 game under that. We'll see if they can actually make it to their projection this year and get to 7-5. I think that's a fair projection. Again, I see 9-3 as a possibility. But I also see 6-6, very possible as well. So kind of in the middle there, 7-5. I would say 6-6, 7-5, 8-4. Those are your most likely scenarios. So yeah, I do think 7-5 is a very fair projection for Washington in 2025. Let me know what you guys think about the Huskies. Give me your projected record down in the comments below. And of course, we do have memberships now available. If you'd like to help support the channel, please do that. You can get early access to videos like this, priority reply to comments, shout outs, badges, emojis, lots of other things. Just check it out. Link is in the description of every single video. Go there, see the different perks. And again, if you'd like to help support the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks for watching.